Don't mistaken real estate investing with investing in something either where you want to live or where you want to vacation to. Now, in some cases, those two things can come together. Real estate investing with investing either where you want to live or where you want to vacation to. But don't fall into the trap of assuming that those two things always go hand in hand, in the sense that obviously you can real estate invest somewhere you want to vacation or where you want to live, and it is actually real estate investing. But what I'm talking about is it a good real estate investment? Maybe, maybe not. Take house hacking, for example. For anyone not familiar with the term house hacking, I actually kind of like the term, unlike a lot of acronyms or terms that get developed to describe different strategies. House hacking, let's say you buy a duplex and you live in one of the units of the duplex and you rent out the other unit. What's great about that is it becomes a rental property. So from the tax perspective, all sorts of advantages, and you're getting income from your tenant to help you, per se, to some degree, with a mortgage payment, for example. In an ideal house hacking situation, the income you receive, let's say you live in a fourplex and you have 3 units paying rent and you live in one of them, in a perfect scenario, all of that rent would actually cover your mortgage, so you're living for free. Super cool. And it is possible. However, back to this trap thing, it's not always how it's going to play out. So, best example with house hacking, again, I'm using the house hacking example because it's mixing real estate investing with where you actually want to live. Now, if you want to live somewhere in the Midwest, like Nebraska or Kansas or somewhere with a lower cost of living, the house hacking strategy might be very profitable and it might work out great. It can be a great first investment. You move into one unit, rent out the rest, get practice being a landlord, get some rental income to help offset your mortgage. Great. Awesome. But what if you live in Los Angeles, Miami, New York City, anywhere in the Northeast, kind of anywhere on the West Coast, high cost of living areas? Is house hacking still as advantageous? Well, part of it depends on what your goals are. But first thing is you have to run the numbers. Here's why. Let's say you just want a rental property with some cash flow. You want to just have a good investment, right? Like a good, solid rental property investment of some sort. In this case, let's say you live in Los Angeles, Miami, New York City, wherever, somewhere high cost of living. Let's run 2 different scenarios of the numbers. You pay what's required in one of those cities, high cost of living, to buy a property that you can house hack, which means you either have to buy a multi-family property, 2, 3, 4 units or more, big apartment complex for all it matters, or you're house hacking by renting out rooms. Either way, you have to buy something that has enough space to support that. So can't live in like a bachelor studio and house hack that. So you're going to pay the money required to open up the door, figuratively and literally, to renters paying you rent. What do the numbers translate to? What you have to pay for the property compared to what that person pays you in rent. What does that all boil down to in terms of either your profit or your mortgage getting covered, either partially or fully? What do those numbers look like? If you have to spend so much money in one of those high cost of living areas to bring in a house hacking situation, and what the person pays you in rent or what the people pay you in rent barely makes a dent, is that all that advantageous? Maybe not. It depends. Again, whatever your goals are, what are the actual numbers? And is it forcing you to live somewhere in those high cost of living areas that you actually don't want to live, somewhere more affordable than if you just, went out on your own and lived where you actually want to live? Versus the alternative. Again, you're just wanting a solid, profitable rental property experience where you can buy an entire house, like a pretty decent house, 3 bedroom, 2 bath, whatever, in the Midwest, for example, for $100,000. So if you're talking about spending $1 million in a high cost of living area to rent it out to 1 or 2 people, whatever they can pay, whatever they pay for that, versus just paying $100,000 for a house that you can rent out specifically just to renters and get positive cash flow every month. How does that shake out? This is where the confusion about house hacking comes in. And I'm only using house hacking to get back to my bigger point of combining, and sometimes falling into the trap of combining your real estate investing ventures with where you want to live. Another example of that would be if you force yourself to live somewhere that you don't really want to live in an attempt to get a profitable rental property or investment property or whatever. Life's short. Do you want to live somewhere that you don't really like just to get an investment property? I don't know. The point of the whole conversation is to run the numbers, really. And this also goes for, like I said, places you want to vacation. So let's pause on that thought for a second about where you want to live, combining that with investment properties. Let's think about the vacation part of it. So let's say that you have a child in school in Baltimore. So you want to have an excuse to write off your travel expenses to go hang out with your kid in college. And because you have rental property in Baltimore, that all works out great. That may work out great. You know, check with your accountant about what you can write off on the travel expenses, but that actually makes sense. Like combining those things, somewhere you travel to all the time, that you could make it a write-off to some degree. What if, though, your kid is in college in, well, Los Angeles, one of the most famous expensive cities, or San Francisco? So if you want to write off the travel expenses to go to Los Angeles or San Francisco where your kid's in school, so therefore you want to buy an investment property in one of those two places, cool, almost. What is like, let's compare that to the $100,000 house in the Midwest. What would you have to spend in order to get an investment property in Los Angeles or San Francisco, assuming you're also going to be experiencing negative cash flow every month, just to write off the expenses to go see your kid? How much is a plane ticket to LA or San Fran? Yeah, it's great if you can write off the travel expenses to go see your kid in college, but how much were you actually writing off compared to the expense that you're taking on just to make that write-off? Instead, you could buy the $100,000 cash flowing rental property in the Midwest where you have no interest in traveling to, and quite frankly, you don't travel there a whole lot, and you're making positive cash flow every month. You're very little money out of pocket compared to the possibly millions in San Francisco or Los Angeles, and you're spending $200-300 on a plane ticket plus whatever your lodging is to see your kid. So in a lot of rental property scenarios, the cash flow alone in 1 month of a cash flowing rental property in the Midwest, as my example, might be in 1 month what you would spend for your plane ticket to go see your kid in college. So let's tie all of this back together and get back to my original point. Real estate investing, if you're going at it from an investor's perspective and you really are wanting to invest in real estate for the purpose of profiting, then great. But if you start to combine that idea with places where you want to live and or places you want to vacation to, be careful, because the water gets muddied very quickly and people tend to completely overlook the possible expense and even sometimes the risk of what they're taking on just to either have the investment property where they live or what they live in, or where they're trying to travel to. Run the numbers. I have a video that I'll link to below about the number one thing going for any real estate investment property that you're considering. Know where your profit's coming from and run the numbers, because if you actually write these couple different scenarios, whether it's a house hack or somewhere you're vacationing where your kid's in college or whatever, what have you, when you actually write the numbers out on paper, you might be shocked. Like, why stay so tied to that write-off if it's going to cost you an arm and a leg to get the property in the first place? So understand that there can be, not always, sometimes these things all do go together and it works out great, depending on what kind of places you like to travel to or where you want to live or where you do live. But the goals for investing should be probably different than keeping your personal housing situation and your travel situations, like understand there can be a difference because it is a change of strategy for sure. Now, like if you're getting short-term rentals, chances are if you want a vacation somewhere, so do other people. So if you're talking like short-term vacation rentals, this could be a whole different conversation. But in terms of straight up real estate investing, presumably rental properties, I assume we're talking about, understand that those things don't always go together and don't pigeonhole yourself into thinking that you need to invest just where it is that you're wanting to be, whether living there or traveling to.